Xi Jinping appears to outmaneuver Donald Trump in Hormuz as Washington struggles to finalize an Iran deal. Is a China-bound LNG tanker crossing the Strait of Hormuz exposing cracks in Trump's regional pressure campaign? Is China now expanding influence not just around Taiwan, but also across the Hormuz energy corridor at America's expense? Is Taiwan growing increasingly nervous as China ramps up military preparations while the US faces pressure on multiple fronts? LNG tankers have started clearing the Strait of Hormuz despite months of tensions between the United States and Iran over regional security and shipping routes. Reuters reported that 2 major liquefied natural gas carriers have now exited the strait without any reported incident. The Bahamas-registered LNG carrier Fuwairat is expected to deliver its cargo to Pakistan by May 26. Fuwairat, which was loaded at Ras Laffan Industrial City in March, has now successfully cleared the Strait of Hormuz. A second vessel, Al Rayyan, also passed through Hormuz after it was last tracked in the Gulf region on May 22. According to maritime tracking data, the vessel is currently sailing between Oman and Iran and is expected to arrive in China by June 27. The developments come as Donald Trump appeared to shift his position on negotiations with Iran after earlier claiming that a deal was close. Trump has repeatedly stated that reopening the Strait of Hormuz remains central to any broader understanding with Tehran. Beijing remains one of the world's largest buyers of Gulf energy exports transported through the strait. Analysts say the safe transit of shipments toward China could weaken the effectiveness of U.S. pressure strategies in the region. Donald Trump said he has instructed U.S. negotiators not to rush into any agreement with Iran as talks continue over possible deal. On May 24, Trump stated that the U.S. blockade would remain in place until a final agreement is formally signed between the parties involved. The remarks marked a noticeable shift after Trump had claimed just a day earlier that a deal was already largely negotiated. Donald Trump said, and I quote, "If I make a deal with Iran, it will be a good and proper one, not like the one made by former President Barack Obama, which gave Iran massive amounts of cash and a clear and open path to a nuclear weapon. Our deal is the exact opposite, but nobody has seen it, or knows what it is. It isn't even fully negotiated yet. So don't listen to the losers, who are critical about something they know nothing about. Unlike those before me who should have solved this problem many years ago, I don't make bad deals." Unquote. According to Al Jazeera, Trump appeared to be stepping back from the proposed deal amid growing internal political pressure. Meanwhile, U.S. officials told Reuters that Iran had agreed in principle to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Officials also said the current framework could provide negotiators with up to 60 days to finalize a broader agreement. Trump administration officials reportedly claimed that Mujtaba Khamenei had endorsed the broad framework of the proposed deal. However, Tasnim news agency reported that the United States was still resisting key Iranian demands, including the release of frozen Iranian financial assets. Marco Rubio told the New York Times that a nuclear agreement could not be finalized in 72 hours on back of a napkin. Rubio said negotiations involving Iran's uranium enrichment program and nuclear stockpile would likely require much more time. The U.S. Secretary of State added that reopening the Strait of Hormuz remained the immediate priority for Washington. Amid the growing uncertainty, Iranian officials said no final understanding could be reached without approval from Mujtaba Khamenei. Iranian sources told CBS News that Khamenei was operating from a highly restricted and undisclosed location. CBS reported that the isolation had slowed communication between Iranian officials and U.S. negotiators involved in the talks. Reports also stated that even Iranian diplomats were facing difficulty communicating directly with Khamenei during the ongoing negotiations. Notably, this was reported to be the first tanker headed toward China to cross Hormuz after Trump's recent visit to China. During the visit, Xi Jinping reportedly emphasized the importance of reopening major shipping lanes to reduce pressure on the global economy. The developments also come as Washington remains focused on China's growing military activity around Taiwan. Analysts warn Beijing may be expanding its strategic influence simultaneously in both East Asia and the Gulf region. a Chinese Coast Guard ship was involved in a tense standoff with Taiwanese vessels, bringing rival ships from both sides face to face near disputed waters. According to Taiwan's Coast Guard, the Chinese vessel only left waters near the Pratas Islands after an extended round of verbal sparring over the radio. Taiwan says it first spotted the Chinese ship heading directly towards the Pratas on May 23, triggering immediate concern in Taipei. Taipei then dispatched one of its own Coast Guard ships to the area, broadcasting warnings over loudspeaker and radio for the Chinese vessel to leave, according to reports. The two sides soon became locked in a heated argument over sovereignty via radio, each insisting the waters around the islands belonged to them. China's crew stated over the radio that they were on a routine mission and that Beijing has jurisdiction over the Pratas, language that Taiwan found especially provocative. Taiwanese officials later said China's choice of words on jurisdiction, as well as the length of time the ship lingered near the islands, were both unusual and worrying. The Chinese ship eventually turned away and began sailing out of the area in the late afternoon on May 24, easing immediate tensions but not the underlying fears. Separately, Taiwan's Coast Guard says it also drove away a Chinese research vessel for the second time this month, underscoring how frequent such encounters have become. On May 24, Taiwan's security chief revealed that around 100 Chinese ships were operating inside the so-called First Island Chain, a belt of sea stretching along East Asia's front line. The First Island Chain is a strategic arc that runs from Japan, through Taiwan and down to the Philippines, seen by Beijing and Washington as a key military boundary. The Pratas Island itself lies roughly between southern Taiwan and Hong Kong, making it a small but important outpost in contested waters. Because Pratas is about 400 kilometers from Taiwan's main island, it is relatively isolated and considered highly vulnerable to a sudden Chinese move. Adding to those concerns, Pratas is only lightly defended by Taiwan's Coast Guard, rather than by heavy military forces, making it a tempting target in a crisis. This latest escalation comes as tensions between China and Taiwan soar in the wake of Donald Trump's visit to Beijing and his decision to pause a major arms sale to Taipei. The Taiwan issue emerged as a major point in talks that were otherwise dominated by the conflict involving Iran and the wider Middle East crisis. During their closed-door discussions, she warned Trump that U.S. support for Taiwan, if pushed too far, could lead to clashes and conflicts between Washington and Beijing. He reportedly went further, saying that if the Taiwan issue was mishandled, the United States and China could come into conflict, leaving little doubt about where China's red lines lie. Subsequently, the official White House readout on the summit appeared to skip any mention of Taiwan, adding to the sense that the topic was too sensitive to spell out publicly. Trump also seemed to dodge a question on Taiwan during his choreographed visit to the Temple of Heaven with Xi, reinforcing the impression that he did not want to publicly provoke Beijing on camera.
Did you talk about Taiwan?
Great place, great, incredible. China's beautiful.
At the same time, Taiwan declared that it would maintain close ties with the United States following Xi's threat, signaling that Taipei has no intention of backing away from its key security partner. Xi Jinping, for his part, said that U.S.-China ties were the most important in the world and insisted we must never mess it up, underlining the paradox of a relationship that is vital yet constantly strained over Taiwan.